Hello everybody, this is Havoc and welcome back to another user interface tutorial overview for Victoria 3. We've gone over the upper left corner, we've gone over the entire right side of the user interface. Now it's time to take a look at your lenses and the bottom bar. This is a very important part to understand how to briefly look at things and how to find certain information within your country. So I hope you enjoy it. Let's get right into it. Your lenses give you the capacity to see certain things throughout your empire and honestly throughout the world. But first, before we get into that, a quick thing, a location finder. This is very crucial. So if you said, oh, I saw a thing that said something about Senegal. Oh, hey, look, there's a French state called Senegal and it allows me to go there. Man, I saw something like the US is doing something with Oregon. Oh, hey, look at that. Oregon is not only a state, but it is a state region. Right? So the location finder is very crucial, and I think it's a fantastic thing that has helped me many a time. And then on the other side, very quickly, you have your map. Now, if you hold tab as it says, it will zoom out. That's a little bit unnecessary. I don't really like it, but this does allow you to see various things, and this is your map filter, national GDP. We can see where our national GDP is basically coming from. Most of our GDP is coming from Bohemia. You can see there it's 14%, so that's pretty hefty. We could go in and we could see our military if we wanted to, see where our HQs are, things of that nature. Just really solid things to look at, and a lot of these contain worldwide stuff. So we can see here that Bessarabia doesn't have great quality of living, and I would hate to be living in some of these places where they are starving. But I would really love to be living in places like the Midlands. Well, probably not actually enjoy living there, but you know what I mean, in the game anyways, because the standard of living is high. And then of course you can click that again to go back to your default map mode. Now for the political lenses, we're gonna walk through each of these very quickly. Your production lens is exactly that. It's showing the production buildings of your country, and they are broken up into agriculture, the different types of farms that you can currently have based on the lands that you own, resources, so the resources based on the various states that we are in control of, and of course your industry. Now I will say this, industry is something that you can build. This doesn't mean that I can only have an arms industry in Transdanubia or whatever, or shipyards obviously need a coast, but this basically just says, hey, you have the capability of building these buildings in any of your states. Now that isn't always the case. You can see right here, shipyards can only be built in 4 locations. It's the same for all of these. Typically with resources, you're a little bit limited. Pretty much logging camps can be built everywhere, but that's not always the case. But just know this is a fantastic way. If like, oh man, I need wheat farms because my people need grain. Well, where can I build that? Okay, cool. Well, grain will also give me wine, so that's cool. And I can build in 23 different states. Rye farms, however, which give you liquor, can only be built in Bohemia and West Galicia. So you have to consider that. You have to, because there's places that you can't build. The same goes for your resources. We don't have any gold mines, at least not yet, right? It's resource quantity. So that's a really good way to get an overview of the things inside of your country. Going on to political lenses, it's the same ordeal. You can build your politically minded things like your construction sectors, your government administration. All of these can be built anywhere. You just have to have other considerations. Decrees is where it gets really fun. This is limited, of course, to your country, as is all things for the political realm. But your decrees are very powerful tools. If you'll remember, if you watched the first capacities tutorial, I mentioned that you have authority, especially a lot of it in the early game. Decrees allow you to sway your states with certain benefits. For instance, if I had a place, let's say West Slovakia. Oh no, let's go to a place that doesn't have a lot of capacity left. Bohemia is a good one. We don't have a lot of infrastructure left. This is essentially room for 8 agricultural buildings or 4 industrial buildings. So Bohemia has, let's say, what do they have that we might want? Okay, we really need a lot more iron, but I can only build 4 of them. I need to boost that up. The issue roads maintenance increases infrastructure by 25% and gives you a state construction efficiency of 10%. We do that, and now we take a look at Bohemia. They had 68, now they have 85, and that is due to the 25% increase from road maintenance. If you have a country or if you have an area that produces a lot of a certain resource, say it was agriculturally minded. Styria, for instance, doesn't have a lot, but say we wanted to make it so. I could go down to my decrees, I could hit encourage agricultural industry, and I'm good there. Or if I have a resource heavy region, promoting stability or social mobility is good because it gives you qualifications for your pops to move up and down the system to fill certain jobs. So if, for instance, say I had an industrial place, or if I had a place that had a lot of buildings that they weren't being filled because there wasn't a lot of qualifications, you could slap down promote social mobility, and that would allow a flexibility in your promotions and your education access. Do not forget about decrees, especially in the early game. And especially if you are a smaller country. As Belgium, for instance, you only have 2 states, which means you have the capabilities of pumping several decrees into those 2 states to really boost things up a lot. Now, an important thing also with the political lens is that you get to see your interest groups and their influences throughout each individual state, right? So here we can see that the Austrian aristocracy has the highest political strength. We can see here, it's the aristocracy. It's the aristocracy. Hey, guess what? It's the aristocracy. This just gives you a good idea on what you want to focus on. You could boost the aristocracy, or you could see if you enacted a law that removed their political strength, you would see who would pop up next in line, which would be the armed forces, which means they would get more political influence, which you could utilize for your government. I did forget to mention that production lens, if you zoom in close enough, does give you your infrastructure abilities. But remember from the first tutorial that you could also just simply hover over your GDP to find that out as well. So that's an important thing to think about. Next up is your diplomatic lens. You got to remember political lens is within your own country. A diplomatic lens affects everything outside of it. We start with 3 sections: regional actions, diplomatic plays, and diplomatic actions. You can declare interests. Now, I honestly don't know what determines the amount of interest that you can have. I'm not well versed in that yet, but you can see we have a maximum of 6 and we've used 6. We are interested in Iberia, Occitania, Rhine, North Germany, Dnieper. I'm sure I ruined that. And Anatolia. What does that mean? A declared interest means that you are interested in this political region or this diplomatic region. And that means anything that goes on in these 6 regions, we can have an influence on. So for instance, if Prussia decides to go after Saxony, I will get what's called a diplomatic play pop up on the right-hand side. And essentially that means, okay, I have an invested interest in this, and because of that, I can influence it. I could side with Saxony, I could declare neutrality, I could do all sorts of things. But that's essentially what your declared interest does. Now, if you have colonial affairs institution and an interest in a region, you can definitely start colonies. Now, we're going to do this just for kicks. I'm going to declare not an interest there, and we could do an interest in, well, let's see. We'll declare an interest in Congo. Now, it does take a minute for this to enact. We're not going to go through all of that because I don't want anything else popping up. But now that I have a declared interest, I would be able to establish a colony once I got the Colonial Affairs Institute built. But outside of that, because I've declared an interest in that region, anything that goes on here, if Portugal decides to go after Kassanji, I could say, hey, I'm going to support these guys, or heck, I'll even support Portugal. Declaring interest is a very powerful tool, and it'll allow you to do a lot of flexible things. Your diplomatic plays work just like your other operations did. This gives you a range of diplomatic things that you can do and the number of valid targets. I could annex Krakow if I wanted to. I could ban slavery in the Ottoman Empire if I win that war. These are diplomatic plays and the exact things that will pop up over here. Conquering the state of Cilicia will start a diplomatic play. There we go. With Prussia. Now, I might be able to win this if I play my cards right. But that's what will pop up over here. This is a diplomatic play. And so again, once you have a diplomatic play, you can't do anything else for diplomatic plays. That's important to note. I can't say I'm going to try and invade 3 places at once. It just doesn't work. Now, I could back down, not just yet, but regardless, that's what's going to happen. And we can see who has invested in interest in this. Right now, it's only Great Britain and Russia. Now, more countries might come in, sure, but right now, that's all that's going to happen. Next up are diplomatic actions. And this is different outside of diplomatic plays, although you can see the same system of having valid targets is there. This is the diplomatic plays or diplomatic actions where I can do not plays, but interact with the nations around me. I can improve relations. I can expel diplomats, which is not good. I can invite people to a customs union, whether they'll come in or not is different. But this gives me a range of actions. And honestly, it's those actions that will determine a lot of the times how diplomatic plays play out. If I'm really buddy-buddy with Russia and I'm really buddy-buddy with France and Great Britain, and I go after Prussia, the likelihood that Russia will join on Prussia's side might not happen simply because, well, he doesn't want or they don't want to risk damaging the relations with me. I'm stronger than Austria, than Prussia, etc., etc. There's lots of diplomatic plays or actions that go on here, but do know that all of them, if I remember correctly, will influence how much influence you have left. So keep that in mind. Moving on to the military lens. It's the same system, guys. You're starting to see a repeat of how useful the lens is, but also how usable it is. Here, I can build barracks in 25 states. I can build naval bases in 4 states. My army, I can activate conscription centers, which I would probably want to do in order to get going with war against Prussia very quickly. This basically just gives you a list. I can select the states themselves, or I can filter and just click here to enact them. Goodness gracious. And then of course I can recruit more generals. We have, you see, 1 general in each of the HQs, but we could hire more if we needed to. It's just a quick and easy toggle button to get there. And then of course your Navy, recruit admirals. Very cut and dry. Your trade lens is very, very cool because not only can you build construction centers and ports, you could move your market capital. I don't know that I've ever done this, nor will I ever do it. I don't know the benefits of it. This is pretty cool in that it gives you a toggleable way to start some import and export trade routes. Obviously, we can only, we can only import things that are available. So right now, things like airplanes, automobiles, ironclads aren't available to us. But all of the resources, this is what everyone else can and is producing that we could import into our country. And of course, the valid targets. Now, what's really nice about this is that it allows you to see how many convoys you have available. Every import trade route uses up convoys, so that's important to remember. If we clicked on ammunition, we would then be able to see the options available to us and if they're going to be profitable. I don't recommend doing an unprofitable trade route. It just doesn't make sense. It's not going to affect things so drastically that I think it'd be worth losing money on. But at the same time, if you're paying an exorbitant amount, let's find, I don't know, I think coal was a good one. If you're paying a stupidly high amount, then it's going to be beneficial regardless. I guess here would be a good instance. If we were to go into the Danish market, the impact on the cost of clippers in our market would drop by £9. That's a decent amount. It's not fantastic, but it's not terrible. So just keep in mind that you can totally do that here. You can also enact any trade routes from the market tab. But the same goes for exports. Obviously, we cannot export anything we don't produce ourselves. But by holding or by clicking on any of the resources, we are immediately sent to the screen here, which will allow you that stuff. An important thing to remember is that I honestly would not export basic goods no matter how enticing it might be, because you'll see here, if we export lead to the French market, our lead price within our own market goes up drastically. So that means if I were to export fish, that doesn't go up that much. I do wish I had better examples here. But we can see here that exporting meat, which is a basic good needed by our population, would go up by 2 pounds. That's not a lot, but you get my idea. If we were to export something that would drastically increase, this goes up by almost 4 pounds in our market. It hits your pops, which decreases your standard of living. Just something to keep in mind of. But yeah, you can do a whole lot of things here. And you can just do a whole lot of things with all of these lenses. So I think it's a very important thing to keep in mind how you can utilize the lenses across the board to really help figure things out for your nation. It's a very important tool, and I'm really glad that Victoria 3 has it in here, and I hope that it helps you out significantly. And that will wrap up the lenses user interface tutorial in Victoria 3. Thank you so much for hanging out with me. If you want to watch these all together combined, I have the massive overall UI tutorial, so you don't have to keep clicking, although I do appreciate the support from the views. If you enjoyed the video, of course, as always, you can give the video a thumbs up, subscribe to this channel for more Victoria 3 content, and leave your comments in the comment section down below. I'll do my best to help you as much as is feasible. One last thing, if you want to support the channel and you have yet to buy the game, you can do so by purchasing the game through my Games Planet link. Nets you a little bit of money off, but also gets me a commission on top of it. It's one of the better ways that you can support this channel. Thank you guys so much for watching this user interface tutorial on Victoria 3. This is Havoc, and I'll see you in the next one.